All right, let's plug into one of the greatest tech rivalries in history. This wasn't just a battle for the future of electricity. It was a fight that's still shaping our world in ways you probably don't even realize. Okay, so it all kicks off with this, a patent from Nikola Tesla back in 1888. And look, this wasn't just some newfangled motor. Nope, this was a totally radical idea for a whole new kind of power. It's called alternating current, and it basically lit the fuse on a rivalry that got really fierce, really public, and yeah, pretty brutal. But here's the thing, the real ticker, that whole conflict between these two brilliant visions for our electrical grid, it never actually went away. It just evolved. And believe it or not, the question of who's winning is maybe more important today than it ever was. So to really get this, we've got to meet the two giants at the heart of it all. This was way more than just a tech squabble. This was about two completely different ideas for how to power, well, everything. All right, so in one corner, you've got Thomas Edison, the big name, the established guy. His system, direct current, or DC, was already the standard. And yeah, it was pretty safe at low voltages, but it had one massive problem: distance. DC just fizzles out the farther it goes. You'd literally need a power plant on every other street corner to keep things running. Then in the other corner, you have the challenger, Nikola Tesla. His big idea was alternating current, or AC. And the genius of AC is that you could use transformers to crank up the voltage super high, letting you send power hundreds of miles away with barely any loss. It was a total game changer. So, once a guy named George Westinghouse started actually building Tesla's AC systems, this whole thing exploded. The fight spilled out of the lab and right onto the front pages of newspapers. It turned into this all-out public war. We're talking propaganda, smear campaigns, and some, well, literally shocking events. And man, things escalated quickly. In '86, Westinghouse lights up a whole town with AC, a huge success. But just 2 years later, Edison's side hits back. Not with a better invention, no. They hit back with fear. This whole campaign ends up with the horrifying first use of an electric chair powered by AC in 1890. And that was no accident. It was a calculated move to make people think AC equals death. But, as you'll see, the story takes a huge turn just a few years later. And this right here? This was the heart of their attack, coming from a guy named Harold P. Brown. He was this engineer who kind of just popped up out of nowhere, fiercely attacking AC. His message was simple and, honestly, pretty terrifying. AC is going to kill you, and the electric companies just want to make a quick buck off this cheaper system. Okay, and this is where it gets really dark. You have to understand just how far Brown and his supporters, who, by the way, were secretly backed by Edison's own company, were willing to take this. They actually held public spectacles where they electrocuted stray animals, dogs, cats, even a horse, all with alternating current, just to prove how deadly it was. It was absolutely brutal, but as a piece of public theater, it worked. The whole smear campaign really hit its peak when New York decided to use electrocution for the death penalty. And guess who secretly made sure they used a Westinghouse AC generator to power the chair? Yep, Harold Brown. The first execution was just a gruesome disaster. A horrified George Westinghouse pretty much summed it up with this grim line. But here's the thing. You can run all the smear campaigns you want, but you can't argue with physics. And when it came to sending power over long distances, AC was just flat out better, period. The real turning point, the big knockout punch, came at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Westinghouse and Tesla actually won the contract over Edison's company, and what they did was incredible. They lit up the whole White City, as it was called, with 100,000 light bulbs all running on AC power. It was this dazzling spectacle, an undeniable win, that showed the entire world what AC could really do. So after the World's Fair, that was pretty much it. AC was the undisputed king. The entire electrical grid that powered the whole 20th century, that was built on Tesla's vision. You'd think the war was over, right? Winner declared. But things are rarely that simple. The war wasn't really over. It was just sleeping. Okay, now let's fast forward about 100 years. The world's facing a whole new set of problems. We've got renewable energy coming online, and we need to move insane amounts of power across entire continents. The old AC grid, it just wasn't built for that. We needed something new. And that's the big puzzle for energy today, right? Think about it. You build these huge solar farms way out in the desert or massive wind farms offshore. But the cities that need all that juice are hundreds, even thousands of miles away. So how on earth do you move that power all that way without most of it just disappearing?
And this is where the story takes this amazing ironic twist. The answer was DC, a super modernized version of Edison's old system called high voltage direct current, or HVDC. See, with today's advanced electronics, engineers figured out how to send DC power at incredibly high voltages, which finally solved that old distance problem it always had. So, when you look at the grid today, it's not about one being better than the other anymore. High voltage AC is still awesome for shorter regional power grids. But for the really big jobs, we're talking about sending massive amounts of power over super long distances, like across a country or under the ocean. HVDC is the undisputed champ. It loses less power and is way more stable.
So what does all this mean for that old war of the currents? Well, it means the war is finally truly over. Because the old rivals, AC and DC, they're not fighting anymore. They're actually being brought together, integrated into one single, super smart hybrid system. And this new combined network has a name: the smart grid. It's a massive leap forward from the old way of doing things because it basically adds a brain, a layer of digital intelligence on top of the brawn. The whole point is to make our power system way more efficient, way more reliable, and a whole lot cleaner. So here's how it works. The smart grid basically takes the best of both worlds. It uses those super efficient HVDC lines to pull in huge amounts of green energy from those remote wind and solar farms. Then it uses the trusty HVAC network to spread that power all through our cities and neighborhoods. It's a grid that's smart enough to watch itself, to redirect power if there's a problem, to stop a blackout, and even to talk to the devices in our homes to help us use energy smarter. So when you boil it all down, that 100-year-old fight between Edison and Tesla has finally come to an end in the best way possible. Their two ideas, once at war, are now working together. You know, that first war of the currents, it literally gave us light in our homes. This new peace, this cooperation, it's building a smart global nervous system for all our energy. It leaves you with a pretty big question, doesn't it? What are we going to do with it?